So in this part, we're going to follow what we were talking about last time. So to start off with, remember the assumptions that we are operating under. So women's self-defense. In general, the defender is going to be smaller, lighter, probably less upper body strength, and not have a whole lot of training. Okay, that's the situation we're operating under. Now, the defense that we were shown versus the hook punch, we should probably comment here that it isn't really a hook punch that we're defending against. It's more like a roundhouse punch. A good hook punch would be a lot closer in and a lot more arc, a lot tighter to the body. We're actually working on roundhouse punches, which flow out a lot farther. There's still the cross-body motion, but it does extend farther. So what we were shown, and then what we're responding to in this case, is this defense versus the hook punch. Okay. I'm going to step forward, do a hook punch. She's going to, in slow motion, do the defense that we were shown, at least to our level of understanding. So I step forward, start the hook punch. She steps in, elbow to the face, grabs, steps under, pushes down with an arm bar. Okay? So that's the situation that we're responding to. So if she punches at me with that arm, this arm. Okay? As I step forward, the first thing we have to do is get inside the arc of the arm and strike to the head. Now you notice for me, it's easy because this is the height I am. You notice in her case, she actually had to kind of strike upward, and she's not that much shorter than I am. So the strike placement has to be very careful to get it into the face. Strike to this area, while maybe somewhat effective, against someone who's much bigger, which is kind of what we're assuming in most of these cases, isn't necessarily going to jar the attacker very much. The strike would have to be actually to the face to significantly impede how the attacker is moving. And that's important here, because as a roundhouse punch comes in, there's an inward arc here. Okay. One of the comments about our version, where we step in and block this way, is the fact that if the person is really big, as they arc inward, they're going to roll us over. Okay. I'm going to punch this way, do the normal standard block, but don't do it very forcefully. Okay. As I step in and punch and she blocks, if I do it hard, I can knock her backwards, and that was a very valid criticism of this particular technique if this person doesn't step into it hard enough. The thing is, versus the self-defense situation that we find ourselves, stepping in, pivoting, and doing an elbow strike lends itself to the same problem. Okay, I'm going to strike at her again, she's going to step inside, do the elbow. Halfway through it, before she hits me with the elbow, we're going to stop and we'll talk about what happens. I start swinging, she steps in here, and right about here, she's inside the arc, but this doesn't hit her in the head. However, all of my force hooks her in that direction because I'm going to follow through. The only way to stop this body section of its follow through is the fact that she has to step in, rotate through, and hit me in the nose before this arm crosses from this position to that position. So this person has to be moving very, very quickly and respond quickly to my initiation of movement. So one of the things we would say versus this technique is that a relatively untrained person, particularly a smaller untrained person, is going to have a very difficult time getting inside the arc, pivoting 180 degrees, and putting an elbow strike onto the nose. And like we said, it has to be a fairly focused strike. An elbow strike on the nose is someone who's much larger, and doing that all before I complete my body movement. So getting in there is hard. Now, once she's in here, I hook, she steps in, she gets in fast enough, boom, hits me here. Okay? I get popped backwards, she hits it nice and solidly, I lose all the momentum of my arm, so I stop here. Whereupon, to complete the technique, she has to grab my wrist, raise it above her head, and step out. Okay? Now notice, to do that, she has passed my arm in that direction. If someone turns my arm and I've been hit this way, and I then focus on the person who hit me, I'm going to move in that direction. Which means I'm going to do this. And it's very hard to do an arm bar on an arm that's bent already. If she stays in close, her chances of being able to put an arm out, go ahead and push with all your body weight. Okay? With her body weight from that distance, if she's close in trying to get above me and just push down with an arm is unlikely unless the elbow strike is sufficient to actually knock me half unconscious. So the second comment we would make is stepping under and then coming in for an armbar for someone who's much smaller is also exceedingly difficult. Not impossible, but again, from a women's self-defense standpoint, it's not high percentage in that in a short amount of time, you can't teach most women to do that effectively. The technique might still work, But my bet is the people who can make it work have been practicing it for a good long time and know a lot more about body mechanics and body movement. Okay? So, some things we would probably change in this is that if we came in initially and did our block and wanted to end with the arm bar or something like that, step forward, do our normal straight block. I hook on, she steps in, blocks, boom, hits the hand. Okay? Whereupon, if she wants to, she can reach over, grab the arm. Now, as she rolls it over to set up the arm bar, she would step far back and pull me off balance forward, such that once it's there, the arm is up, my shoulders are pulled forward of my body, and she can drive downward. Now, again, to do that though, she still has to pull the arm over the head and then push down with her body weight. And if the guy is really big, you don't want to match body weight to body weight, in my opinion. So, for this sort of thing, again, if she's going to punch at me with that hand, I step in, boom, strike, turn, lock. It's possible. But is it probable for someone who hasn't been practicing very much, or someone who has not had the opportunity to practice very much? Probably not, from that perspective. Again, someone who has lots of practice time, who practices good body movement and quick body movement, may be able to pull it off. I personally wouldn't choose that, simply because I want things that are higher percentage. Meaning that if someone throws a punch at me, most of the time it's going to work. And that's what I prefer to do. Okay. This one looks good, and it can do some very good things. If you can get that particular sequence done, your attacker is no longer a threat. And the part about getting it done in the first place, however, is problematic, especially if they're big and they really drive that hook punch in. In the middle of, I do this, she steps in and starts her rotation. Okay, if my other hand is up when she comes in, I'm going to hit her here, my other hand will be up anyway, and her chance of keeping her balance and actually striking me drops down sharply. So, with respect to how we would talk about that technique, we probably wouldn't suggest it from a women's martial arts perspective, because it's not high percentage.